Hello friends, welcome again. Food recycling is an incredibly interesting and important topic. Furthermore, the human resources, job potential, project and funding opportunities, technology, and overall potential of this field are unbelievable. Speaking for myself, it excites me a lot. Today's topic is financial strategies, funding applications, and imaginations for your project. Let's get started. This training module is designed to ensure the financial sustainability of startups focusing on food loss and waste (FLW) reduction, and no enhance their capacity to access international funding mechanisms. Participants will learn how to move food waste from being a cost center and transform it into a profitable capital item based on circular economy principles. Our learning objective is firstly, strategic evaluation, business model development, fund management, application architecture, and financial engineering. Every topic is very important. Dear entrepreneurs and visionaries who have included saving the future in their business plans, I am here today not just to talk about numbers, but to analyze the human behavior and institutional transformation behind those numbers. As an industrial psychologist, I can tell you, food waste is not a logical error. It's a perceptual and management failure. This is the point of view. United Nations 2030 targets are not just papers signed by states. They are a trillion-dollar efficiency compass for us. If a startup cannot manage food waste today, it means they cannot manage their money. As an entrepreneur, your project needs to be bankable, not just emotional. In other words, your project should enter the dreams of bankers or investors as profit. Today, we will transform the traditional mindset that sees waste as a burden, which we call a fixed mindset in psychology, into a circular vision that sees waste as capital. Remember, sustainability is not just for polar bears. It's necessary for the survival of your company. Let's face it, we all love free things, but in the world of food waste, there is a brilliant concept called negatively priced raw material. As a psychologist, I know that people fear losing twice as much as they love winning. That's why you should use the concept of shadow pricing when developing your strategy. Don't tell the investor, we will sell this money tomato skins. Tell them, we will turn the €100 per ton disposal tax our client avoids paying into profit. This is cost avoided and it's worth gold and the balance sheet. Furthermore, the states are now in the role of a market maker. Laws like Loigoret in France, which fines supermarkets for waste, are actually creating customer needs for you. In our entrepreneurship classes, we always say, don't create a need, heal an existing pain. If regulations are hurting your customer, you are the painkiller that soothes that pain. Waste is no longer just a sin. It's a cost crisis when not managed correctly. In psychology, preventive medicine is what waste prevention is in the food system. Financially, this model is my favorite because it requires low capex. In other words, capex means capital expenditure. In other words, you don't need concrete, steel, or massive factories. You just need smart code and data scientists. Look at the Windows solution example. They put a camera in kitchen and tell the chef you save $50 in trash today. Human psychology is strange. Throwing away kilos of food might not upset us, but hearing the sound of cash dropping from our wallets changes our behavior immediately. The ROI, the ROI offered by this model is usually less than 12 months. ROI means return on investment. When you tell an investor, give me money and I will give you software that pays back in a year, you make their dopamine levels skyrocket. Too good to go, on the other hand, turn uncertainty into a product. While not knowing what will be left at the end of the day is a risk. Selling it's a surprise back is financial genius. They transferred the inventory risk to the customer and the joy to the customer. In corporate consultancy, reputation management is the most expensive item. Upcycling, however, puts reputation into the product for free, like Toast Ale does. Producing beer from stale bread is selling the customer a heroic story, not just a drink. The financial magic here is hidden in the COGS, cost of goods sold, goods item. If your raw material cost is zero or negative, you start 1.0 ahead of your competitors. But be aware, the killer of this business is reverse logistics. Waste is scattered, perishable, and temperamental. Your logistic cost can swallow your raw material gains. As an entrepreneur trainer, my advice is to build your model hyper-locally. Let me add with my HR specialist hat. The motivation of teams doing this work is usually very high because their work has meaning. Beer tastes good, but beer that saves the world tastes premium. Consumers are willing to pay 20% more for this meaning. There is your green premium. Now we move to the heavyweight category. Here we are talking about stainless steel tanks worth millions of euros, bioreactors, and vertical farms. Biogas and anaerobic digestion (AD) plants are modern alchemy factories. Look at the examples of natural energy from Denmark or Vanguard Renewable from the United States. The financial heart of these facilities is not energy sales, but the gate fee. Imagine you receive raw material and the seller pays you on top of it. They say, take this waste, dispose of it, and I'll give you $50 per ton. Then you produce gas from that waste and sell that too. A dual revenue stream. However, the initial investment cost, capex, of this facility is very high, and banks will not give you a loan without 50, 20-year put or pay contracts. Another exciting area, insect protein. The French company Insect raised over $270 million to produce mealworms. Why? Because the world is hungry for protein, and the most efficient machine that can convert food waste, vegetable peels, pulps into high-value protein is the black soldier fly or mealworm. These facilities are technology-intensive investments with high biological risk and climate control costs. These projects require high capex. But once you reach economies of scale, you become invincible. From an HR perspective, these facilities are great hubs for green-collar employment requiring high technical skills. As an engineer or strategist or manager, you can create wonders in the laboratory, but if you don't present a techno-economic analysis (TA) at the investor meetings, those wonders will remain in the laboratory. Investors like stories, but they invest in data. The metrics you see on the slide are the life support until your project. First, the CAPEX versus OPEX balance. If you are a SaaS software startup, you don't spend much money initially, low CAPEX, but You pay high salaries for continuous development and sales teams, high OPEX. If you are a biogas plant, you make a huge construction expenditure at the beginning, high capex, but your operating cost is relatively low and predictable. You must tell your investor from the start which game you are playing. Second, processing yield. The questions of how much value do you extract from 1 ton of waste? If you only make compost from orange peels, a ton is worth 10 euros. But if you extract pectin or essential oil from it, bioraffinery, a ton can be worth 1,000 euros. This is where engineering, HR, and strategist intelligence comes into play, maximizing the value hidden inside the waste. And of course, return of investments, ROI, when your customer, a hotel, buys your technology. How soon will they get their money back? If you can say in less than 1 year, as in the Vino example, you don't need extra persuasion to make the sale. The golden rule of entrepreneurship: don't burn your own money. Use someone else. But there is a better rule. Find money without giving up equity. This is where non-dilutive funding comes into play. The European Union's Horizon Europe Cluster 6 program is the Champions League for us. They distribute millions of euros under the heading of food, bioeconomy, and environment. Their goal is systemic transformation. So, if you just say, I made a better trash can, you wouldn't get funding. You must say, I establish a system that brings together the farmer, the market, and the customer, reducing food waste by 20%. We call this multi-actor approach. If you don't have someone from the field in your consortium, that project wouldn't pass. The LIFE program is focused on implementation. R&D is finished, research and development is finished. The technology is ready, but commercialization and dissemination are needed. The magic word here is replicability. You succeeded with your project in Milan, but will it work in Istanbul or Warsaw? You must prove this. At the GEM in our country, TÜBİTAK, especially in the 1501 and 1507 programs, if your project serves the Green Deal objectives, you get extra points in the evaluation. This is a tremendous advantage for Turkish firms. My strategy is this: build your prototype with national funds, reduce your risk, and then scale up to Europe with EU funds. Grants are great, but they are not infinite. If you want to grow the project and become a global player, you need private equity. There's a new trend here: blended finance. This is the dance of the public and private sectors. For example, the European Circular Bioeconomy Fund, ECBF, the European Investment Bank, puts up the money, undertakes risks, and private investors follow. These funds exist to rescue startups in the valley of death, where technology is proven, but money is needed for commercialization. Then there are impact investors, funds like Astana Ventures. They don't just ask, how much profit will you make? They ask, how much carbon did you reduce per ton? How many tons of food did you rescue? They put financial return and environmental impact on the same scale. Finally, crowdfunding. Don't see Kickstarter or Indiegogo just as places to collect money. That place is the world's cheapest and most effective market research laboratory. If people pre-order a cracker made from wood waste that you haven't produced yet, this is the biggest proof of demand you can present to investors. Filling up a 50-page EU project form is not writing a literature work. It's drafting an engineering project. Just a building without a foundation collapse, a project without a logical construct is rejected. The backbone of the work is the logical framework matrix. It's very important. The evaluator wants to see this chain when reading. Three objectives is activity, output, and outcome. And finally, impact. What is the result means? If you cannot establish this causality link, your money goes to waste. Also, avoid fancy but empty phrases like "we will save the world" in the impact section. Use Milan Urban Policy Pact indicators. When you say "we will achieve this much reduction according to indicator 4", you are speaking at international language. And please don't view gender and just transition issues as optional. These are now mandatory. How does your project affect female employment? Are you making access to food difficult for the poor while reducing food waste? Are you protecting food dignity? If there are no answers to these questions, there is no grant. Investors and founders love dreamers, but they trust risk analysis. You must show that you know the kill criteria of your project, the risk that can kill it, and that you have taken precautions. What is the biggest nightmare for a biomass plant? Feedstock risk. You build a facility for 10 million euro, but the potato factory supplying you with waste closed down or sold its waste to someone else. What will you do? Your facility turned into a pile of metal. Solution. You must include 10-year supply contracts and put or pay agreements in your application file. That is, if the supplier cannot deliver the waste, they must pay the money. Second risk, technology risk. A process working in a 5-liter reactor in the lab may not work in a 50-ton tank. Bacteria are finky. They get temperamental when the scale grows. Solution, a phase transition plan. First pilot, then demo, and always have a plan B, fallback option. You should be able to say, if the innovate method doesn't work, we will return to standard composting. So that you are going to do when you go to work on Monday morning. Here is what your perspective. The waterfall funding model. You must take the capital at the right time from the right source. Stage 1. Your idea is still a baby. The risk is very high. If you go to a bank, you'll be kicked out. If you go to a VC, they will want half the company. Your address, Tibitak and Horizon Europe. Develop technology with the 100% grant, reduced risk. The risking means. Stage 2, the prototype works, but you need to test it in the field. You need a pilot plant. You address live program or cascade funding. Perform the first real-world application with 60% grant. Stage 3, now you have working system and customer contracts. You will pour concrete, erect steel. Now you can go to the bank and private equity funds, because you have pilot data and supply contracts to show as collateral. In summary, use the grant for innovation, the loan for construction. If you mix up the order, your cash flow will clog. As we come to the end of our presentation, I would like to remind you of this. Food waste management is not just a romantic pursuit about protecting the environment. It is the dance of engineering and finance. Reducing food waste by 50% by 2030 is one of the largest logistical and behavioral transformation projects in human history. And this transformation is creating a new economic sector. Our duty as food engineering, HR management, financer, strategist, and so on, is not just to calculate calories or carbon or something else. It's to make the shadow price of waste visible and turn it into an assessed item on balance sheet. My request to you is this: when designing your projects, formalize collaborations versus flyaway contracts remain. Speak based on data and diversify your revenue models. Waste is not a burden, it is capital. You just need to know how to look at the right place with the right technology and the right financing. Thank you for listening.